I never thought my own flesh and blood would betray me. Not Andrew, my only son whom I'd raised alone after his father walked out on us when he was just 3 years old. Not the boy I'd worked 3 jobs for. The one whose college education I'd paid for by selling my jewelry and working nights. Not the young man who'd always said, "Mom, you're my hero." But there I was, standing in the driveway of the home I'd lived in for 30 years, grocery bags at my feet, staring at new locks on my front door. "Andrew?" I called, pressing the doorbell that suddenly sounded foreign to my ears. "Andrew?" The door won't open. Movement behind the curtains. Then his face appeared as the door opened just enough for him to stand in the gap, his body blocking any entrance. "Mom." His voice was different, cold, rehearsed. "The key doesn't work," I said, holding up my keychain with the little silver house charm he'd given me for Mother's Day years ago. I changed the locks. He didn't meet my eyes. Beyond him, I could see boxes stacked in the hallway. My hallway. The one with the height marks on the wall showing how Andrew had grown each year. "You what? Why would you—" "This isn't your house anymore. Check the papers." A chill ran through me as his words sank in. The papers. 6 weeks earlier, I'd signed over the deed to my house to Andrew. He and Addison were expecting their first child, and they'd been saving for a down payment on a home. They'd looked so defeated after being outbid on the 3rd house they'd tried for. "You'll get back on your feet," I'd told him. "But in the meantime, you should have a stable place for my grandchild. Just put the house in your name so you qualify for the renovation loan. We can transfer it back later." He'd cried then, hugged me tight. "You're the best mother anyone could ask for," he'd said. Now he looked at me like I was a stranger. "Andrew, we both know that was just to help with the loan. This is still my home." I reached for the door, but he blocked me. "Actually, it's not. The transfer was unconditional. You should have read what you signed." Behind him, Addison appeared, 7 months pregnant and avoiding my gaze. "Andrew Anthony Birdie, this isn't funny. Let me in my house right now." My voice cracked as panic began to set in. "Mom, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We need the space for the baby. You can stay with Aunt Ruth for a while. Ruth lives in a studio apartment 3 states away. Then figure something out." His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "We've already moved your essential things to the shed out back. You can come get them tomorrow when we're at work. The rest we'll donate or sell." "My things? Andrew, everything I own is in there. My clothes, my mother's china, the quilt your grandmother made. Like I said, the essentials are in the shed. The rest, well, we need to make this place our own." I stood there, stunned into silence. This couldn't be happening. Not from Andrew. "Why?" was all I could manage to say. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, perhaps? But Addison placed a hand on his shoulder, and whatever hesitation he had vanished. "It's just business, Mom. You always taught me to seize opportunities. That's all I'm doing." And with that, he closed the door in my face. I don't remember picking up my groceries or walking to my car. I only remember sitting behind the wheel, rain mixing with tears on my face, watching the lights go on in rooms that no longer belonged to me. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "Shed code is 5491. Don't come until after 9 tomorrow." That night, I slept in my 12-year-old Honda in the parking lot of the supermarket where I'd bought the groceries that now sat spoiling in my trunk. At 3 a.m., I woke to my phone ringing. "Mrs. Birdie, this is Henry Smith from First National Bank. I'm sorry to call at this hour, but our system flagged some suspicious transactions on your accounts that I needed to verify with you immediately." I sat up straight, fully awake now. "What transactions?" "There appears to have been a wire transfer of $157,000 from your retirement account to a new checking account opened last week. And then today, those funds were transferred to an account under the name of Andrew Birdie. As this represents nearly all of your retirement savings, our fraud department—" My heart stopped. "What did you say? Andrew transferred my retirement money to himself?" There was a pause on the line. "Mrs. Birdie, according to our records, the request came with all the proper authorizations and your signature. The forms were submitted last week." Last week? When Andrew had brought over some final paperwork for the house transfer that needed to be notarized. When he'd flipped through pages so quickly, pointing at signature lines while talking about the baby's nursery colors. "Mr. Smith," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I did not authorize those transfers. My son, he must have slipped those forms in with others I was signing." "I see," he said, his voice taking on a more formal tone. "In that case, Mrs. Birdie, I strongly advise you to come to the branch first thing in the morning. Bring identification and any documentation you have. We'll need to file a fraud report immediately if we want any chance of recovering those funds." After hanging up, I stared at the phone in my hand. My son hadn't just taken my home. He'd taken everything I had. I thought about the last few months, how Andrew and Addison had suddenly become so attentive, dropping by several times a week, how they'd offered to help organize my files since retirement paperwork can be so complicated, how Andrew had insisted I update my will and power of attorney just to be safe. How could I have been so blind? Dawn was breaking when I made a decision. I wouldn't confront Andrew yet. I needed to be smart, strategic, qualities I'd clearly failed to employ until now. Wiping away my tears, I started the car. I had exactly $243 in my checking account, my Honda, and the clothes on my back. But I also had something Andrew didn't know about, something that might just save me, and eventually make him wish he'd never betrayed the woman who had given him everything. I pulled into the bank parking lot 2 hours before they opened and began to make my plan. Henry Smith wasn't just a banker. He became my first ally. When I explained my situation, his professional demeanor cracked, revealing genuine concern. "What your son did, Mrs. Birdie. It's not just immoral. It's illegal." He slid a cup of coffee across his desk to me. "Financial elder abuse is a serious crime. I'm only 58, I said automatically, clutching the warm cup. "Hardly elderly." A small smile crossed his face. "In legal terms, anyone over 55 can be considered an elder in financial abuse cases. And what Andrew did, tricking you into signing over your retirement funds, that's textbook abuse." I stared at the steam rising from the coffee. "He's my son." "Who stole your home and life savings?" Henry said firmly. "I've seen this before, Mrs. Birdie. People believing family would never hurt them until they do." "Call me Ashley," I said. Seems we're past formalities. For the next hour, Henry helped me file fraud reports and place freezes on all my accounts. We traced what we could of the money, but most had already been transferred to an account at another bank. "We can recover some funds through the fraud claim," Henry explained, "but it will take time. And given that you did technically sign the documents, even if I was deceived, it complicates things. Do you have texts, emails, anything showing your true intent with the house or money?" I thought back to our conversations. Everything had been in person. Andrew had been careful. "You need somewhere to stay, money for essentials," Henry said pragmatically. "Do you have any assets he doesn't know about?" That's when I remembered. The car. "My Honda, it's paid off, worth maybe $8,000. "That's something," he nodded. "And your job?" I laughed without humor. "I took early retirement last year to help care for Addison during her difficult pregnancy. Andrew said my retirement funds were enough." Henry typed something into his computer. "I can approve an emergency loan against potential fraud recovery. It's not much, but it will help you get on your feet." By the time I left the bank, I had $3,000 in a new account Andrew couldn't access and a plan, albeit a fragile one. My first stop was the shed behind my former home. The code worked, and inside I found few of my possessions. Some clothes, basic toiletries, a box of photos, my laptop. No furniture, no kitchenware, none of my mother's heirlooms. The rest, my life, remained locked inside the house I'd paid off after 25 years of mortgage payments. I took what I could fit in my car and drove to Sunshine Extended Stay Motel. For $270 a week, I got a room with a kitchenette and free Wi-Fi. It smelled of industrial cleaner and old cigarettes, but it was shelter. That night, sitting on the bed that sagged in the middle, I opened my laptop and started researching elder abuse laws, property fraud, power of attorney limitations. By midnight, my eyes burned, but I understood my options, none of them quick or certain. The next morning, I called Serenity Martinez, an old colleague who ran a rideshare business. "Ashley, it's been ages. How are you?" "I've been better," I admitted, then gave her the abbreviated version of my situation. Serenity's outrage warmed me. "That ungrateful little—" She cut herself off. "What can I do? I need work. I have a reliable car and time. Come by the office this afternoon. We're always short on drivers." By the end of the day, I was officially a driver for Serenity's company, Rides Her Way, an all-female rideshare service that catered to women who preferred female drivers. I worried my age might be a deterrent to riders, but it proved the opposite. Many women, especially older ones, felt comfortable with a driver who reminded them of a reliable aunt or mother. I learned to navigate the city efficiently and discovered that a warm smile and attentive ear earned good tips. For 2 weeks, I drove 12-hour shifts, offering airport runs at dawn and safe rides home to women after evening shifts. Between rides, I researched my legal options and made appointments with low-cost legal aid attorneys. The consultations were sobering. Yes, I had a case for fraud, but proving it would be challenging and expensive. Yes, the house transfer could potentially be contested, but it would take months, if not years. In the meantime, I needed to survive. One night, driving a young nurse home after her late shift, she mentioned her frustration with hospital transportation for elderly patients. "So many just need a reliable ride to appointments," she sighed. "But traditional services are expensive, and regular ride shares can be difficult for older people with mobility issues." I found myself thinking about this long after dropping her off. By morning, I had the seed of an idea. I approached Serenity with my concept: specialized rides for seniors and those with medical appointments, drivers trained in basic assistance, vehicles equipped with conveniences for older clients or those with mobility challenges. "It's a niche market," I explained. "I've been talking to passengers, and there's a real need." Serenity considered it. "We'd need special insurance, training programs. I could develop those. Before retirement, I managed staff training programs." That was 3 weeks after Andrew had locked me out of my life. I was living in a motel, working 14-hour days between driving and developing my new program. I'd filed the initial legal paperwork to contest the retirement fund transfer, but knew it would be a long process. Then came the text from Andrew. "Mom, we need to talk. I know you're upset." I stared at my phone, emotions churning. Anger, hurt, a small, pathetic flicker of hope that maybe he regretted what he'd done. I typed back, "About what?" His response came quickly. "The bank froze some accounts. They're asking questions. We should get our story straight." Our story straight. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I made a terrible mistake." He wanted my help to cover his tracks. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Henry Smith. "He's feeling the pressure," Henry confirmed after I read him the texts. "The fraud investigation is proceeding. But Ashley, be careful. Don't meet with him alone." "I have no intention of meeting him at all," I said. But that evening, as I was returning to my motel after a long day, Andrew was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his new luxury SUV, likely purchased with my retirement money. "Mom." He stepped forward, arms outstretched like we were meeting for Sunday dinner. "I've been worried." I kept my distance, keys clutched in my hand. "How did you find me?" He shrugged. "It wasn't hard. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" My voice rose despite my resolve to stay calm. "You stole my home and my money." "I didn't steal anything. You signed the papers." "Papers you deliberately misrepresented." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache despite everything. "The house transfer was your idea. As for the retirement funds, I was just trying to protect your assets. Addison and I can manage them better. By emptying my accounts without my knowledge, you were making poor financial decisions. The trip to Spain last year? The expensive gifts for Addison's baby shower? We're your family. We're just looking out for your interests." I almost laughed. The extravagant trip to Spain had been my first vacation in 15 years. The baby shower gifts were what any grandmother would buy. "Andrew," I said quietly, "you need to leave." "Mom, be reasonable. This motel isn't safe. Why don't you come home with me? We can clear out the guest room. The guest room. In my house. So now you're worried about my safety? After leaving me homeless? His expression hardened. I can see you're still being emotional about this. But you should know, things could get complicated if you pursue this fraud claim. Questions about your mental competence might come up. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. Are you threatening me? I'm being practical. Who do you think people will believe? A successful young businessman with a family, or a retired widow living in a motel who's clearly having financial difficulties? Before I could respond, a car pulled into the lot. Serenity, dropping off some training materials we'd been working on. She assessed the situation in one glance and was out of her car in seconds, standing beside me. Everything okay, Ashley? She asked, eyes fixed on Andrew. Andrew forced a smile. Family discussion. I'm her son. I know exactly who you are, Serenity said coldly. Ashley's told me everything. Andrew's smile faltered. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. Ashley is my business partner now. I saw confusion cross Andrew's face. Business partner? Mom doesn't have a business. Serenity smiled. She does now. And it's already showing more promise than whatever scheme you're running. She turned to me. The contracts are in my car. Shall we go over them inside? There were no contracts, but Andrew didn't know that. I nodded and started toward Serenity's car. Mom, Andrew called after me, desperation creeping into his voice. The bank is asking questions. If this goes further, it could affect everything. My job, the house loan, the baby's future. I turned back to him. You should have thought of that before you stole from your mother. As we walked away, Serenity whispered, You know he's going to come after whatever you're building next, right? I nodded, watching Andrew drive away, his taillights glowing red in the darkness. Let him try, I said. This time, I'll be ready. What I didn't tell Serenity was that I'd already set a trap, one that Andrew would walk right into, thinking it was his own brilliant idea. Lifeline Transportation Services became official 1 month after I was locked out of my home. Serenity and I partnered to create this specialized division of her company, focusing on transportation for seniors and those with medical needs. I invested my remaining bank loan, plus $6,000 from selling my Honda. In return, I received a 40% stake in the new division and a company vehicle, a small, comfortable SUV equipped with grab handles and other aids for clients with mobility issues. My plan was simple but deliberate. Build something valuable, something that would give me financial independence and, if my legal case against Andrew dragged on, an income stream to sustain me. I didn't want charity. I wanted to rebuild on my own terms. Marketing our new service was my responsibility. I created flyers and distributed them at senior centers, medical facilities, and retirement communities. I built a simple website with clear information and easy booking options. But our most effective marketing tool was me. I drove, I listened, I helped. I escorted elderly clients from their doors to doctor's appointments and back. I waited during procedures when needed, carried groceries and remembered names, family details, and medical schedules. Word spread. Clients requested me specifically. Within 3 months, we needed to hire 2 more drivers. We should be focusing on expansion, Serenity said during one of our weekly meetings. With the demand we're seeing, we could double our fleet by year's end. I nodded, reviewing our impressive growth charts. I've been approached by 3 retirement communities about contracted services. And that hospital liaison called again about regular transportation for outpatient services. Serenity leaned back in her chair. Ashley, this is becoming bigger than we anticipated. It was. What had started as survival had evolved into something that filled a genuine need in our community. For the first time since Andrew's betrayal, I felt a sense of purpose beyond mere survival or revenge. But revenge was still part of the equation. The trap I'd set was already in motion. When I'd left the bank that first day, Henry Smith had helped me open a new, separate account, one that would only appear on my credit report, but wouldn't be immediately visible to someone just checking my main banking information. Into this account, I'd been depositing 30% of my income. On paper, I appeared to be just getting by, living paycheck to paycheck in my modest apartment. I'd upgraded from the motel after the second month. Meanwhile, my stake in Lifeline was structured through a limited liability company that wasn't directly tied to my name. A legal protection Serenity had suggested, just in case Andrew tries something else. I'd also been quietly documenting everything. My conversations with Andrew, his text messages, timestamps of when he changed locks, and records of exactly what possessions of mine remained in the house. My attorney, Kimberly Rodriguez, a specialist in elder law whom I could finally afford to retain properly, was building a solid case. The retirement fund fraud is our strongest angle, Kimberly explained during one of our meetings. The house will be more complicated since you did sign it over, but we can argue undue influence and misrepresentation. How much longer? I asked. For the financial recovery? We could see movement within 60 days. For the house? That could be a year or more in the courts. I nodded, resigned to the timeline. And what about criminal charges? Kimberly's expression was carefully neutral. That's up to the district attorney. The evidence is strong, but prosecuting family members in these cases is complicated. I understood. Even after everything, part of me still struggled with the idea of my son facing criminal charges. 6 months into my new life, I received an unexpected visitor at the modest office space we'd recently leased for Lifeline. Addison, my daughter-in-law, stood in the reception area, her 3-month-old daughter cradled against her chest. My heart clenched at the sight of my granddaughter, whom I'd never met. "Ashley," Addison said hesitantly, "I hope it's okay that I came." I gestured toward my small office, maintaining a composed exterior while my emotions churned underneath. The baby, Olivia, I knew from social media, slept peacefully, unaware of the tension surrounding her. Once the door closed behind us, Addison spoke first. "I didn't know," she blurted out, "about the retirement money. I swear, Ashley. Andrew told me you had gifted us the house because you wanted to downsize. And then you changed your mind." I studied her face, looking for deception. "And you believed that I would choose to sleep in my car rather than downsize?" She flushed. "He said you were being difficult, that you'd refused his offers to help you find a new place." She bounced the baby gently as Olivia stirred. I knew something wasn't right, but Andrew kept saying it was just temporary drama, that you'd come around. "And now?" I asked, my eyes drawn to Olivia's tiny features, so like Andrew's when he was a baby. "Things are falling apart," she admitted. "The bank has frozen accounts. There's talk of an investigation. He's not himself. He's drinking, staying out late, talking about moving us to his cousin's place in Arizona. Running away won't solve his problems." "I know that." Tears filled her eyes. "I found the papers, Ashley. In his desk. The ones with your signature for the retirement transfers. I saw how he'd slipped them in with the house documents." My heart pounded. "You have proof?" She nodded. "And texts between him and his friend Mark, discussing how to get you to sign without reading everything." She shifted Olivia to her other arm. "I can't be part of this. It's wrong. And I don't want my daughter growing up with this shadow over our family." Part of me wanted to comfort her, but a harder part remembered how she had stood behind Andrew that day, saying nothing as he locked me out of my home. "Why come to me now, Addison? Why not go to the police? He's still my husband. Olivia's father." She looked down at the sleeping baby. "I don't want him to go to jail. I just want him to make this right." I considered her words carefully. "And what do you want from me?" "A chance to fix this without destroying everything." She reached into her diaper bag and pulled out a thumb drive. "Here's everything I found. The papers, the texts, bank statements showing where the money went. Use it however you need to, but if there's a way to resolve this without criminal charges, I'm asking you to consider it." I took the drive, our fingers briefly touching, the first physical contact with my family in half a year. "I can't make any promises, Addison. What Andrew did wasn't just a mistake. It was calculated theft." "I know." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "But he's scared now. The fraud investigation, your lawsuit, he knows he's cornered. He might be willing to negotiate." After she left, I sat alone in my office, the thumb drive heavy in my hand. If Addison was telling the truth, this evidence could accelerate everything. The financial recovery, possibly even the house situation. But something felt off. The timing. Addison's sudden attack of conscience. Andrew's apparent desperation. I called Kimberly and explained the visit. This could be genuine remorse, she said cautiously. Or it could be another trap, I finished. Andrew realizes he's in trouble and is using Addison to gain my sympathy or obtain information about my legal strategy. I'd advise caution. Don't contact Andrew directly. Let me review what's on the drive first, in case it's not what she claims. I agreed, but after hanging up, I couldn't shake the image of Olivia's innocent face. Whatever happened, she was blameless in all this. That evening, as I was reviewing client schedules for the following week, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Ashley Birdie?" a man's voice asked when I answered. "Yes, who's this?" "Noah Caldwell. I'm an investor interested in your transportation service. A colleague mentioned your company is seeing impressive growth in a niche market." I frowned, immediately suspicious. We weren't well known enough to attract random investor interest. "We're not currently seeking investment. Even if the offer were, say, substantial enough to buy out your partner and expand operations statewide?" A chill ran through me. "How did you get my number, Mr. Caldwell?" A slight hesitation. "Through mutual business connections. I understand your situation, Mrs. Birdie. A new business owner, previously retired, looking to secure your financial future after certain setbacks. He knew about me, about my circumstances. I'd like to meet," he continued. "Discuss potential opportunities. Your business model has significant scaling potential." I kept my voice steady. "Send me your information. I'll consider it." After hanging up, I immediately called Serenity, who was as puzzled as I was. We'd discussed expansion, but only locally, and certainly hadn't approached investors. "Run a background check on this Noah Caldwell," I told her. "Something feels wrong." My instinct proved correct. The next morning, Serenity called, her voice tight with anger. "Noah Caldwell is a former business school classmate of Andrew. They worked together at the same firm 5 years ago." The pieces clicked into place. Andrew had discovered Lifeline was becoming successful. Now he wanted to take that from me, too. I leaned back in my chair, a strange calm settling over me. "Let's invite Mr. Caldwell to meet us. I want to hear his offer." "You can't be serious," Serenity protested. "Oh, I am." I smiled for the first time that day. "In fact, let's make sure it's a meeting he'll never forget." What Andrew didn't know was that his attempted corporate raid was about to trigger the second phase of my plan. The part where I not only reclaimed what was mine, but ensured he would never again underestimate the woman who had raised him. The meeting with Noah Caldwell was set for Friday afternoon at Lifeline's office. Kimberly insisted on being present, though we agreed she would introduce herself simply as our business advisor. While we waited, I reviewed the contents of Addison's thumb drive. Kimberly's team had confirmed its authenticity. The documents were genuine, including damning text messages between Andrew and his friend discussing their plot. "It's enough to force a settlement," Kimberly had said, "but there's still the question of Addison's motivation." I wasn't taking any chances. I'd arranged for Henry Smith to join our meeting with Caldwell as well, introducing him as our financial consultant. The small conference room felt crowded with tension as we waited. Caldwell arrived precisely on time. Tall, polished, with the practiced smile of someone used to getting his way in negotiations. He faltered slightly upon seeing 3 people waiting instead of just me. "Mrs. Birdie," he extended his hand. "A pleasure to meet in person." "Likewise, Mr. Caldwell. This is Serenity Martinez, my business partner, Kimberly Rodriguez, our legal advisor, and Henry Smith, our financial consultant." His smile tightened as he shook each hand. "I was under the impression this would be a preliminary discussion, and I was under the impression you were a legitimate investor," I replied pleasantly. "Yet, here we are." He attempted to recover. "I assure you, my interest in your company is genuine." "Is it?" I slid a folder across the table. "Because we've been doing some research on you, Mr. Caldwell. Or should I call you Noah Winters? That seems to be the name on your actual driver's license." His composure cracked just enough to confirm my suspicions. "Your connection to my son Andrew is particularly interesting," I continued. Former classmates, occasional golf partners, and, most recently, discussants in several phone calls right before you contacted me. Business connections are common in our circles, he said stiffly. Indeed. Now, shall we discuss your real purpose here? Or would you prefer to continue this charade? For a moment, he seemed to consider maintaining his cover story. Then he sighed, dropping the act. Andrew said you were clever, but I underestimated you. A common mistake in my family, apparently. He just wants to talk, Mrs. Birdie, to resolve things without lawyers and courts. By sending you to spy on my business and potentially take it over? That doesn't sound like someone interested in an honest resolution. Caldwell, or Winters, shifted uncomfortably. The investment offer was real. Andrew thought if you had enough money, you might drop the legal actions. So his plan was to buy me off with my own stolen retirement funds, disguised as investment in my company. I laughed without humor. And then what? Push me out once he had control? His silence was answer enough. I leaned forward. Tell Andrew if he wants to talk, he can meet me here tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Addison. And tell him to bring his checkbook. He's going to need it. After Caldwell left, Kimberly looked at me with concern. Are you sure about this? Meeting them without filing the new evidence first? I'm sure, I said. It's time to end this. That night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but from carefully reviewing every detail of my plan. By morning, I was ready. Andrew and Addison arrived exactly at 10, with Olivia in a carrier. Addison looked nervous, but Andrew wore an expression of confident ease that I recognized from childhood. The look he'd had when caught in a lie, but convinced he could talk his way out of consequences. Kimberly, Serenity, and Henry were already seated at the conference table. A court reporter sat quietly in the corner, a detail Andrew noticed immediately. Is that necessary? He asked, pointing at her. Absolutely, Kimberly responded. Everything said today will be on record. Andrew's false smile slipped. Mom, I thought we were here to work things out as a family. We are. And part of that is acknowledging what's actually happened. I gestured toward the seats. Please sit. Once they were settled, I began. I've reviewed the evidence Addison provided. The documents proving you defrauded me, the text messages planning it, the bank statements showing where my money went. Andrew shot a betrayed look at Addison, who stared at the table. That was private, he started. Private fraud is still fraud, Andrew, I interrupted. You stole my home and my life savings through deception. I was protecting your assets, he insisted. You were making poor financial decisions. Like what? Name one, he faltered. The trip to Spain, those expensive... My first vacation in 15 years cost $3,200 total. That's hardly extravagant from a retirement account of over $150,000. I kept my voice level. What did you spend it on, Andrew? The $40,000 SUV in the parking lot? The $12,000 nursery renovation? The $9,000 in electronics and new furniture? His face reddened. Those were investments for our family's future. My family too, or so I thought. I slid a document across the table. This is our settlement offer. Review it carefully. Andrew glanced at it, then pushed it away. This is ridiculous. You want the house back? Full restitution of the retirement funds with interest and additional damages? That's what the court will likely award given the evidence, Kimberly said calmly. This offer is actually generous because it allows you to avoid criminal charges. Criminal charges? Andrew laughed, but I could see fear behind his eyes. Come on, Mom. You wouldn't do that to your own son. Wouldn't I? I met his gaze steadily. You left me homeless, Andrew. You planned and executed a deliberate fraud against your own mother. You used my love and trust against me. You're exaggerating. I was going to pay you back eventually. Henry Smith spoke up. The evidence suggests otherwise, Mr. Birdie. The structure of the accounts you created, the rapid dispersion of funds to hard-to-trace purchases, the texts discussing how to ensure Mrs. Birdie wouldn't contest the transfers. It all points to a carefully orchestrated theft. Andrew's confidence was visibly crumbling. Addison, tell them. Tell them we were just trying to secure our future, for Olivia. Addison finally looked up, tears in her eyes. By stealing from your mother? By leaving her to sleep in her car? She shook her head. I can't defend this anymore, Andrew. What you did was wrong. For the first time, I saw genuine shock on my son's face. He'd lost his allies, one by one. And what about your new venture, Mr. Caldwell? I asked. Another attempt to take what isn't yours? Andrew paled. He told you? Of course he did. Your plan wasn't particularly subtle. Use inside information about my business to orchestrate a takeover, then push me out once you had control. I shook my head. Did you really think I'd be that easy to fool a second time? Andrew stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Perhaps he was. The mother he'd known, the one who always gave in, who prioritized his happiness above her own, had disappeared the day he changed those locks. I don't have this kind of money, he finally said, tapping the settlement paper. Most of it's gone. Then you'll sell the house, I replied. And the car. And anything else of value you purchased with my money. You'd put your grandchild on the street? He gestured toward Olivia, a last desperate attempt at manipulation. No, Andrew. That's what you did to your mother. I softened my voice, looking at the baby. Addison and Olivia are welcome to stay with me while you sort things out. I've recently leased a small house. There's room. Addison's head snapped up, surprise in her eyes. Andrew looked from her to me, realizing he'd lost his final leverage. And if I refuse this settlement? Kimberly opened another folder. Then we file these papers today. A civil suit for fraud and conversion, and a criminal complaint for financial elder abuse. With the evidence we have, you're looking at potential jail time. The room fell silent, except for Olivia's soft babbling. Andrew looked cornered, desperate. I need time to think, he finally said. You have 48 hours to sign the settlement and begin arrangements to transfer the house back to me, I said firmly. After that, we proceed with the lawsuits. As they gathered their things to leave, Andrew paused. Why didn't you fight back sooner? You had to know something was wrong when I changed the locks. I studied my son, this person I'd raised who had become a stranger to me. I was in shock, Andrew. I couldn't believe my own child would betray me so completely. I picked up the settlement papers and handed them to Kimberly. But I'm not in shock anymore. After they left, Serenity squeezed my shoulder. You were magnificent. I wasn't feeling magnificent. I was feeling hollow, exhausted by the confrontation with the son I'd once been so proud of. Will he sign? Henry asked. He'll sign, Kimberly said confidently. He knows we have him cornered. But as everyone gathered their things, my phone buzzed with a text from Addison. He's furious. Says he'll burn everything down before giving it back to you. I'm scared, Ashley. I showed the message to Kimberly, who immediately began typing on her laptop. We need an emergency injunction to prevent him from destroying property. And Addison needs to get herself and the baby out of there. As we scrambled to respond to this new threat, I realized Andrew's desperation made him more dangerous than ever. He'd already proven he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And now, he had nothing left to lose. The final confrontation was still to come, and it would determine not just the fate of my possessions, but the future of what remained of my family. Kimberly moved with impressive speed. By evening, we had an emergency injunction prohibiting Andrew from damaging, removing, or disposing of any property from the house. The sheriff's department agreed to serve it immediately. Stay away from the house tonight, Kimberly warned me. If he's as volatile as Addison suggests, your presence could escalate things. I nodded reluctantly. What about Addison and the baby? I've arranged for them to stay at a hotel tonight, on our firm's account. She's packing essentials now while Andrew is out. My phone buzzed with a series of texts from Addison. Left with Olivia. Andrew still not home, taking only baby things. 20 minutes later. At hotel. Safe. Andrew called, screaming. Says you've ruined everything. I typed back. Stay where you are. I'll come tomorrow. Sleep was impossible that night. I kept picturing Andrew in my house, our family home, destroying the memories and treasures I'd accumulated over a lifetime. The antique writing desk that had belonged to my grandmother, the hand-painted china my mother had left me, the quilt I'd spent 2 years making after Andrew's father left us. Just past midnight, my phone rang. An unknown number. Mrs. Birdie? A formal male voice. "This is Officer Delgado with City Police. There's been an incident at your property on Maple Street." My heart raced. "What kind of incident?" "A disturbance. Your son, Andrew Birdie, has been taken into custody. The property is secure, but we need you to come verify if anything is missing or damaged." I arrived to find 2 police cars in the driveway, their lights cutting through the darkness. An officer escorted me inside. The house was largely intact, though signs of rage were evident. A shattered mirror in the hallway, broken picture frames, a toppled bookcase. But the systematic destruction I'd feared hadn't materialized. "What happened?" I asked the officer. Neighbor called about shouting and breaking glass. When we arrived, Mr. Birdie was attempting to remove furniture from the house despite having been served with the court order. He became belligerent, resisted officers, and was subsequently arrested for violating the injunction and obstruction. I sank onto the couch, my couch, in my living room. "Is he hurt?" "No, ma'am. Just angry." The officer's expression softened. He'd been drinking. Said some things he might regret when he sobers up. "About me?" The officer nodded uncomfortably. "And about his wife. Seems she left with the baby?" "She's safe," I assured him. After the police left, I stood alone in the silent house. Familiar walls, familiar floors, yet everything felt different. My home had been the site of betrayal, then stolen from me, and now returned through legal force rather than love or remorse. I walked through each room, cataloging the changes Andrew and Addison had made. The nursery, formerly my sewing room, was painted a soft yellow with woodland creatures stenciled on the walls. Olivia's crib stood empty, waiting. In the master bedroom, my bedroom, they'd replaced my comfortable old furniture with sleek modern pieces. The mattress where I'd slept for 20 years was gone. In Andrew's old room, now turned into a home office, I found boxes. My boxes. The essentials Andrew had claimed to have put in the shed were here instead. Dozens of containers hastily packed, labeled in Addison's neat handwriting. Mom's clothes, Mom's books, Mom's jewelry. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in tissue paper, I found the silver house charm that had been on my keychain, the one Andrew had given me years ago. He must have removed it before tossing my keys into the shed. I clutched it in my palm, finally allowing myself to weep for everything lost. Not just possessions, but trust, family, the future I'd imagined with my son and granddaughter. Morning found me asleep in an armchair, still holding the charm. My phone woke me, Kimberly, with news. "Andrew is being released on bail. The DA is considering additional charges beyond violating the injunction." "What kinds of charges?" "Attempted grand theft, for starters. He was trying to load your mother's antique desk into a rented truck when police arrived. Given the value and the fact that he'd already been served with the order, I closed my eyes. "Can you delay any new charges? Just for a day or two?" "Ashley, after everything he's done, I know what he's done. But I need to talk to him first. Without lawyers, without police." Kimberly was silent for a moment. "I can probably buy you 48 hours. But Ashley, be careful. He's desperate and angry. I know my son, Kimberly, better than he thinks I do." I spent the day sorting through my belongings, putting my house back in order. Around 3 p.m., Addison arrived with Olivia. "Andrew is staying with a friend," she said, bouncing a fussy Olivia. "He won't tell me which one. Just said he needs time to figure things out." I took Olivia from her arms, feeling the perfect weight of my granddaughter for the first time. "And what about you? What do you need?" Addison's composure cracked. "I don't know anymore. Everything's falling apart." I guided her to the couch. "Tell me the truth, Addison. All of it. How much did you know about what Andrew was planning?" She wiped her eyes. "When he first suggested you sign over the house, I thought it was like you said, just for the loan. But then you were suddenly gone, and he said you'd had a falling out. And you believed that?" "I wanted to. Then I saw the changes. The new car, expensive furniture, the way he was spending. When I asked where the money was coming from, he said he'd received a bonus at work." She looked down. "I think part of me knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to see it. Until you found the documents." She nodded. "I was looking for Olivia's birth certificate and found the files instead. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Looking at her tear-streaked face, I believed her. Perhaps she'd been willfully blind, but she hadn't been an active participant in Andrew's scheme. "What will happen to him?" she asked. "That depends partly on him and partly on me." I texted Andrew that evening. "We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow at noon, just you and me." His response came hours later. "Why should I?" "Because it's your last chance to do the right thing." No reply followed, and I wasn't sure he would come. But at noon the next day, his car pulled into the driveway. He looked terrible. Unshaven, clothes rumpled, eyes bloodshot. The polished, confident son I'd known was nowhere to be seen. I opened the door before he could knock. "Come in." He stepped inside, eyes darting around the house he'd claimed as his own just months earlier. "Where's Addison?" "Out with Olivia. It's just us." He followed me to the kitchen table, the same one where I'd taught him to do homework, where we'd shared thousands of meals. I'd prepared coffee and set out 2 mugs, a small gesture of normalcy in an utterly broken relationship. "The police said you were trying to take my mother's desk," I began. He stared into his untouched coffee. "I wasn't stealing it. I was moving it to storage before it got damaged in the handover. By loading it into a rental truck at midnight?" His shoulders slumped. "I don't expect you to believe anything I say anymore." "You're right about that." I studied my son, trying to reconcile this angry, desperate man with the child I'd raised. "Why, Andrew?" "I've been asking myself for months. Why did you do this to me?" For a long moment, he was silent. Then, words began pouring out. "It started with the house. When you offered to sign it over for the loan, I thought it was the answer to everything. Addison was pregnant. We were drowning in debt from the wedding, the failed house bids. Debt? You never told me you were in financial trouble." He laughed bitterly. "Of course not. The successful son, following in his mother's footsteps, always making you proud. So, instead of asking for help, you decided to take everything I had? It wasn't supposed to be like that at first." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I thought we'd all live here together. You'd help with the baby, we'd save on childcare, and eventually figure out the house situation. Then what changed?" "Mark, my friend, he pointed out that with the house in my name, I could leverage it, take out a home equity loan to clear our debts. But the bank wanted proof you wouldn't contest the transfer. So you decided to make sure I had nothing to contest with." He couldn't meet my eyes. It just snowballed. Once I started, I couldn't stop. Every step seemed necessary to cover the last one. I let his words hang in the air, absorbing the magnitude of his rationalization. "And now? What's your plan now, Andrew?" "I don't have one." He finally looked at me, defeat in his eyes. "I've lost everything. My wife, my home, my reputation. There's a potential criminal case. My boss knows. He's put me on administrative leave. You did this to yourself." "I know." His voice broke. "I know, Mom." We sat in silence, the weight of everything between us. Finally, I placed a folder on the table, different from the settlement Kimberly had prepared. "This is my offer," I said. "My only offer." He opened it cautiously, scanning the document inside. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "You're restructuring the settlement?" I nodded. "You'll still return the house to me and repay as much of the retirement funds as possible. But I'm dropping the demand for additional damages, and I'll ask the DA not to pursue criminal charges." "Why would you do this after everything?" "Because despite what you did, you're still my son, and Olivia's father." I took a deep breath. "But there are conditions." "What conditions?" "First, complete financial transparency. I want documentation of every dollar you took from me and where it went." He nodded reluctantly. "Second, financial counseling and therapy, for you individually, and with Addison if she's willing, both paid for by you." "And third?" he asked, sensing there was more. "You work to earn back what you took. Not the money, the trust. That starts with taking responsibility for your actions without excuses." He stared at the document for a long time. "I don't deserve this chance." "No, you don't," I agreed. "But Olivia deserves a father who chose to make things right, even when it was difficult." She deserves to know that people can change, can atone for their mistakes. And you? What do you get from this? I thought about the past 9 months, the betrayal, homelessness, starting over from nothing. But I also thought about Lifeline, now thriving, about Serenity and our partnership, about the independence I'd found when everything was stripped away. Peace, I answered simply, and the knowledge that I didn't let your actions change who I am. Andrew signed the agreement that day. It wasn't an instant reconciliation. That would take years if it happened at all. But it was a beginning. In the months that followed, I divided my time between running Lifeline, which continued to expand, and rebuilding my home. Addison and Olivia stayed with me while Andrew found a small apartment nearby and began the long process of making amends. My house gradually returned to feeling like mine again. I kept some of the changes they'd made, including the yellow nursery, now used whenever Olivia stayed overnight. Other rooms I reclaimed completely, erasing the brief period when my home had belonged to someone else. One evening, as I rocked Olivia to sleep, Addison paused in the doorway. "You know what I keep thinking about?" she said softly. "That first night, when you slept in your car, how alone you must have felt." I looked down at Olivia's peaceful face. I was, but not anymore. "How did you do it? Start over at your age, build something new when everything was taken?" I considered her question carefully. I remembered who I was before I was Andrew's mother, before I was anyone's wife, the woman who worked 3 jobs and put herself through school. She was still in there, stronger than I remembered. Addison nodded thoughtfully. "I hope I can find that kind of strength." "You already have," I told her. "The day you chose truth over comfort." Later that night, I sat on my porch swing, the one Andrew and I had installed together when he was 15. My phone buzzed with a message from Serenity, announcing another retirement community had signed a contract with Lifeline. I smiled, thinking of the journey from that night in my car to now. I'd lost my home, my savings, my sense of security, but found resilience I'd forgotten I possessed. The betrayal would always be part of our story. The trust might never fully return. But I had reclaimed more than just my house and finances. I'd reclaimed myself, and in the end, that was the most valuable possession of all.